As our last program of the day, let's talk about defining functions in Java. So again, I'm going to use Python as the simple example. I'm going to say over here, let's define a function called larger. And what it's going to do is take two variables, x and y. And if x happens to be bigger than y, we'll return x. Otherwise, we'll return y. Okay, that's it. And then we might say, let's print the larger of -5 and 10, and hopefully we get 10. Okay. So what should the Java version of this look like? Oh, jeez. All right, there we go. The larger version, or sorry, the Java version of this should look like, well, we'll make a class called larger demo. And then if we want to define a function, we can't put it up here, right? If we tried to define a function up here, right, like define larger or whatever, that would not work. In Java, all code must be part of a class. So I'm actually going to do the function definition here. Now the special phrase I'm going to use instead of def in Java, I'm going to say public static, and then I'm going to make a function name called larger. I'll have x, y, then I might say something like if x is bigger than y, return x, otherwise return a y. Now if I try compiling this, since Java is a statically typed language, it yells at me. It says you need to tell me what x is, what y is, and indeed what larger is supposed to return. So we need to say x has a type, y has a type, let's say they're integers. And then larger itself needs a type, which we'll put right here, right before the name of the function. Okay. So now that I've written this is a proper program that contains the function larger, and then the call to the function we'll put in the main method. So this is what actually gets run when we run the program. So if we want to actually get larger to run, we need to do something like this. So now we run this, and we get 10. Okay. So these are the equivalent programs, Python and Java. So some notes here. To define a function in Java, actually we'll do one. Functions must be part of a class. As unlike Python or other languages, this is not part of any class. It's just a function. It exists. But here, functions must be declared as part of a class in Java. Okay? And as a quick aside, a function that is part of a class is called a method. So in Java, all functions are methods. Okay? And this is just some programming language terminology that's pretty common. 2, to define a function in Java, we use public static. Okay? We will see alternate ways of defining functions later. So they're not always public static. This isn't quite the same thing as def, but for our purposes today, it basically is. Next, we have all parameters of a function must have a declared type, and the return value of the function must have a declared type. Okay, so here our declared type is int. So for example, we tried to say like string x equals larger minus 510, we would get a compiler error. Larger is a function that returns ints. This is a string variable. Okay. And maybe I guess I'll mention just as an aside, functions in Java return only one value. Okay, so I can't say like int string and then have like two things come out of larger. That's not allowed in Java. You get one thing. Okay, and so that's basically the idea of how we, or the idea behind how we define functions in Java. And that's it for programming for today. Now, I don't expect that me having done all these demos that you could just walk right out there and write a bunch of programs, you could write functions. Because like anything, it takes practice. So there are labs that go with this set of videos, there's a book, and I encourage you to experiment with those in order to gain a deeper understanding. But we're not quite done yet. So I want to make some observations about the code I've written. You'll notice that throughout the code, well, there's not much here, but we've named things in a way that makes the code self-readable. What does this class do? Well, it's a demo of the larger function. What does this function do? Well, it's called larger. We didn't call it f. I mean, we could have called it f. This will work just the same. But the code as written here is more descriptive. So one of the very important things we're going to teach you in this class, or hope to, right? Because we're not going to manually examine your code, so I guess you could get away with it and trick us. But what I think you should really strive for, even though we're not watching right over your shoulder, is to write code that is going to be self-documenting, that's readable. Above all else, you should write code that if someone looks at it, they can understand it. There are plenty of other ways that you could write this code. But this way, I think is one of the very clearest. Okay. One other little thing I'll mention is that, well, right here I've been showing you comments. Obviously in your code you're not going to have a big paragraph at the end explaining all the things you observed writing it. Instead, what you want to do is make sure that where you do use comments, it's there so that someone else can understand your code. So I'd say there's not really much to comment in this program, except that there's a general rule of thumb that when you write a function, it's nice to put a little comment at the top describing what it does. Okay? So in Python, it might look something like this. Returns the larger of x and y, in these triple quotes. In Java, the common convention is to do /**, so an extra star here for our block comment, and write a description. Returns the larger of x and y. Okay? Now in this case, it's a little silly, but there are tools that exist that will take source code, find all of the /** comments, and generate a nice HTML document. And so for that reason, you're encouraged to always use java.comments, even whenever a function is pretty self-explanatory. Now the Java.doc format, sometimes people also add little tags here. So you can add, there's various conventions, but you can write things like precondition and explain the thing you expect to be true before the function, whatever. There's a whole different set of ideas about what kind of tags you can have. We're not going to typically require those in this class, but do be aware they exist. It is also pretty common to write a Java.doc string at the beginning, something like demonstrates creation of a larger method, or creation of a method in Java. Something like that, right? I mean, this is kind of a weird meta thing since it's actually just for instruction. So you might have Java docs at the top. For this case, I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, so be aware, this is a good practice. But the most important thing is not the minor details of the tags or the /**. It's really, you should be striving to make sure your code is readable to other people. And sometimes you'll find that those other people are actually you. What do I mean by that? Well, you write a program in September of 2014, and then May of 2018 rolls around and you need to fix it. It is a great favor to yourself in the future to write code that is understandable.